All right, let's just talk about every single Japanese particle. So I'm going to break these particles down into three categories. These aren't like official ones, but the ones that I often use when I explain them, and they are roll particles, connector particles, and sentence final particles. So a roll particle is something that comes after a noun or a noun phrase. Noun phrase is just a way of saying a noun and anything attached to it, like chair is a noun, the blue chair is a noun phrase, the blue chair that I sat on, that's also a noun phrase. Take two nouns together, the chair and the table, that's also a noun phrase. And it tells us what the noun phrase is doing in the sentence. Wa is the topic particle, so it tells us the grammatical topic of the sentence. We don't have grammatical topics in English, so this can be kind of hard to understand. In some civil sentences, the grammatical topic of a Japanese sentence will equal the subject of the English translation, as in, watashi wa wes desu, I am wes, I, watashi, right, they link up, but in other cases it won't. And so I'd recommend, even in simple sentences, translating wa as when it comes to or as for. So this will allow you to access sentences like kyou wa ikimasu, so as for today, will go, and I is dropped, or even things like watashi wa unagi desu, as in I am an eel, but actually as for me, it is eel, which can be used to say, oh, I'm the one that ordered the eel. Ga then is the subject marker and is going to tell us the subject of the sentence. Now, this can be tricky for English speakers to really wrap their heads around, especially early on. So rather than memorizing kind of what a subject is and explaining the difference in a topic, I'd start initially just memorizing the grammar points where this is always going to happen. Some key ones are the x wa y ga something pattern, most commonly known in things like watashi wa neko ga suki desu. And in this pattern, it says as for the x, Y is Z, and the subject is going to do the verb that comes after or be described by the adjective that comes after. So actually, neko ga ski, the cats are ski. It's not you like cats, the cats are ski. This is why when you say like watashi wa kodomo ga imasu, it is as for me, children exist. The children are doing the verb exist, they're the subject. Whenever you have a subject and a topic together, the subject is going to do the verb that follows or be described by the adjective that follows. Another important pattern is the ni and ga pattern, as in place ni, thing ga, arimasu or imasu, that says thing exists in the place. And then ga can also be used to front questions, as in nani ga suki desu ka, or dare ga ikimashita ka, for what do you like, and or literally what is likable and who went. Importantly, when you do this, again, the subject, the thing marked by ga, is going to be doing the verb or described by the adjective that follows. So if you want to ask someone like, what do you eat? You can't use this because nani ga tabemasu ka is what eats, not what do you eat. The answer to that, the subject, is going to do the verb. I should also note though that wa and ga can swap places, especially for emphasis. So if you say like watashi ga ikimasu instead of watashi wa ikimasu, it's like, no, I'm the one that's going to go. It puts emphasis on like that. Likewise, if you say neko wa suki desu in context, it sounds like you're correcting the person. Normally, of course, you'd say watashi wa neko ga suki desu, and this can often create a sense of contrast. For instance, if you say inu ga suki janai desu, demo neko wa suki desu, that doesn't mean but cats like. It is, as for cats, they are likable. So it puts that emphasis there. Basically, if you see wa or ga where you expect the other, some kind of emphasis or contrast is happening. Then you have the particle o, and that marks the direct object. The direct object in a sentence is what is acted on by the verb. Not all sentences have them, but you can usually find out what it is by saying what is verb. So if I say I eat pizza, you can say what is eaten. Pizza is the direct object, you're going to say pizza o tabemasu. In contrast, if I say I will eat today, what is eaten? It's unknown, so there's no direct object. You're not eating today. The only thing to be really careful of is that sometimes what we say in English has a direct object and in Japanese it doesn't. For instance, I ride a train, that would use a direct object in English. What is ridden? A train. In Japanese, it's not considered a direct object. You use a different particle, ni specifically. So you just have to remember that some languages phrase things differently. Then there's the particle ni, and there are multiple particle ni's. And why it's important to remember that these are not different uses of one ni, but multiple ni's, is that you actually are not supposed to, except for some specific contexts, use the same roll particle twice within a given sentence. More accurately, a clause, but if you don't know what a clause is yet, a sentence. So, for instance, there is the time particle ni that marks non-relative times, so not like today, tomorrow, but things like 5 o'clock, 1993. Then there's also the destination of action ni, which says where an action is directed at. Most simply, we see this in things like ni ikimasu, to go to, but also like ni kakimasu, write to, or ni nagemasu, to throw to or throw at. The thing that you throw is of course marked with O, it's what is thrown, but the direction it goes. And likewise, I mentioned norimasu, anything you get on, or aiming it at that. Then there's also the ni that marks location of existence or the location of a state of being. This is usually first seen in ni imasu, ni arimasu, which is a location where something exists, but you also see it in phrases like ni tsundemasu, to live somewhere, where it's a constant state, so it happens in that place. For instance, to be employed, you say ni tsutometemasu, which is again, you're constantly in that state at the location. So the location where a state, something you can't just turn it on and off at will, is happening. And it's important to note that these are different particles because you can use, for instance, the time ni and the destination ni together. Yoji ni, toshokan ni, ikimasu. Great, but you can't use two time ni's together. You can't say kinyobi ni yoji ni. You have to say kinyobi no yoji ni or kinyobi wa yoji ni. You have to break it up. So knowing that there are different ni's, not different uses of ni, is important. And this is true with day as well. There are two different days. One marks the location where an action happens. So Toshokan de hono yomimasu, you're reading the book at the library. And this again contrasts with a state of being. So if you say you work at a company, you say kaisha de hatarakimasu. But if you're employed there, kaisha ni tsutometemasu. Working is an activity that can start and stop. Being employed is one that is consistent. Even if you're not at the place, you're employed there, so state of being. The second day is then method, so the way that you do something. Te de tabemasu is to eat with your hand. Basu de ikimasu is to go via a bus. Any kind of method. And again, these are different particles, so you can say like uchi de te de tabemasu, to eat by hand at home, and that's okay because they are different days. And then you have the role particle to, which means with, so like tomodachi to hanashimasu, talk with a friend. The only trick here is remember that with in English can mean method, so you don't say eat with a fork using this, that'd be foku de, because it's a method. Then kara and made are from and until. Pretty simple. The only thing to note about these is that unlike all other role particles, they can touch des. If you want to say something's at 4 o'clock, you say yoji des. You don't say yoji ni des. But you can say yoji kara des, from 4, or yoji made des, until 4, and that's fine. The second type of particle is then a connector particle, and these just connect something to a noun, usually another noun. No is possessive, so you can say like watashi no kuruma for the car that belongs to me, but it can also be used in a way that we use adjectives in English. For instance, Nihon no kuruma is probably not Japan's car, it's a Japanese car. We say Japanese, they use two nouns. The to particle then connects two nouns together, and it means and. So neko to inu is a cat and a dog. Just be sure you don't connect things that are nouns. You can't say like fun and interesting using to because those are adjectives in Japanese. To can be replaced by ya to have kind of an etc. feel. So biru ya wine would be beer, wine, and things like that. Then finally, the particle na connects a na adjective to a noun, and that's all it does. Fun. Then the final type of particle is sentence final particles. And there are way more of these than I could ever cover in a single video, but the key ones you need to know are ka, which attaches to the end of a polite sentence to make it a question. Sensei desu is a teacher. Sensei desu ka? Are they a teacher? You don't do this in plain form, like sensei ka can sound accusative, like, oh, you think you're a teacher, or reflective, like, oh, sensei ka, like, oh, they're a teacher. Oh, I see. So you don't use it really in those cases unless you have a special need. The particle ne is used for confirmation. So atsui desu ne is like, it's hot. I think it's hot. You think it's hot too. Please confirm. Let's bond over this. I'm saying this and I hope you agree. Let's link. Whereas atsui desu yo, the yo particle, is instead used to inform someone of something that you think they don't know or you think they should know, to kind of ram home the emphasis. So atsui desu yo is more of a cautionary tale, whereas atsui desu ne is meant to bring us together. And atsui desu ka is, I don't know if it's hot. Please tell me. There are other particles too, and it's really hard to talk about them because I'm already running out of time. The video is already going to the max, but these can be somewhat gendered. These are stereotypes. There are men who use the ones that are feminine, and there are women who use the ones that are masculine. But generally speaking, wa is considered to be sort of emphatic and associated with women's speech. Ze and zo are then similarly emphatic. They're like stronger versions of yo, but they're associated more with men's speech. Ze especially is considered more on the vulgar, whereas zo is less restricted, but still not something you'd want to say in a meeting. That's all I can do before the video's out of time. I think I should do a video on sentence final particles that's a bit more in depth in the future, but I hope this crash course helped. See you in the next video. Desu ne.